Now the next block is about the most common combinations. What do we find in the literature, and specifically in the literature on health sciences, about the combination of methods, the combination of qualitative and quantitative methods in mixed methods research? So you have a list, which is not an exhaustive list of qualitative and quantitative methods. So on your left, quantitative methods, randomized trials, non-randomized studies, descriptive studies. On your right, qualitative research methods, case studies, ethnographies, value theory, etc. And in red, I highlighted in red the ones that are most commonly combined together. So for example, it will be randomized controlled trial with an ethnography. So you do your randomized trial, and after the trial is finished, you do an ethnography with, for example, the intervention group to better understand how the intervention worked and how to improve it. Because there may be another trial, or if the trial was actually efficient, if the trial showed that the intervention was effective, it's an effectiveness study, if the intervention was effective, you want to actually eventually discuss and observe and work with the intervention group in order to maybe make the intervention more friendly or more acceptable socially or more easy to follow better, maybe from the perspective of the patients. Remember that qualitative research is about to give the meaning of social actions based on the perspective of the people involved. Another cool example will be the combination of a cohort study, longitudinal study over time, quantitative, and a qualitative case study approach. In other words, you follow your cohorts for 1, 2, 3, 4 years, and at the same time, concomitantly, you do case studies. So you receive the data, you receive the quantitative data, and cohort studies, traditional cohort studies are about exposure to something. And you cannot change the exposure, right? If the exposure is the sun, the exposure to the sun, you cannot change the sun. So here it doesn't really matter if the two studies are concomitant, they will not interfere with anything. You cannot change really the exposure. So the case study may actually help exposed, non-exposed, and help the researchers to better understand what are the social mechanisms associated with exposure, non-exposure, barriers, facilitators, and etc. And from the perspective of the people, the participants in the cohort studies. Another good example of a common combination are the combination of incidence or prevalence surveys, cross-sectional designs, quantitative, and quantitative description studies. Let's say that you do a cross-sectional survey, like in January, okay? You have the results in March, and then in April, maybe you want to actually talk to a specific group identified by the survey, like the outsiders or the outliers, because the survey will give you will give you a very good understanding of what's going on with the majority of the respondents. You may have not a lot of information about the outsiders. I mean, the people who with very few answers, and these are maybe the people you want to reach. An example of that is a survey that was conducted in Montreal for access to mental health services. The survey showed that actually revealed that the Vietnamese community did not have access to mental health services in primary care. So an ethnography was then conducted with the Vietnamese communities and participant observation, Vietnamese organization, to better understand from the inside with the Vietnamese population, with the Vietnamese immigrants in Montreal, to understand why this population didn't have access to mental health services. And the combination of both, the quantitative and the qualitative, led to actually propose a program to the Ministry of Health to improve this access. With the survey alone, you cannot write a program. With an ethnography alone, you don't know really what to study and how to compare with other populations. So both were needed to sell the program to the ministry.